Once upon a time, there was a very wealthy old man who owned a vast grove of walnut trees among many other things. The old man had tried without success to open the shells of the walnuts efficiently so that he might capitalize on his abundant supply of the nuts. Having frayed his last nerve with his many attempts to free the meat from the shell quickly, the old man announced a reward would be given to anyone who could solve this vexing problem. Many tradesmen proffered their solutions to his dilemma, with a woodcutter suggesting he simply saw the shells in half, and a soldier suggesting he shoot the nuts. And at this juncture of the story, I am quite certain the well-to-do man rolled his eyes and allowed his heavy wooden door to swing closed on these two brilliant problem-solvers, though the storyteller diplomatically leaves these details out of the tale. Needless to say, the old man remained unable to improve upon his nut-cracking productivity until one day a traveling puppet maker arrived at his doorstep with a hand-carved wooden puppet whose mouth could be opened by levers in the back of his body. The nut-biting little man made quick work divesting the shell from the tasty meat of the walnut, and the affluent farmer, delighted to have solved his problem, gave the puppet maker his own shop. And everyone lived happily ever after. At least, this is the legend that explains the origin of the wooden nutcracker. And this tale is as good as any other, as unlike Pinocchio and Geppetto's family drama, nobody really knows when the first nutcracker was carved. By the 15th century, wooden Nussknackers were being created in both human and animal form, with their levered jaws offering to help children and adults alike in opening their stubborn walnuts. Tradition attributes the first carved nutcrackers to the wood craftsmen in Seiffen, Germany. And if you have watched any of our previous Christmas Advent videos, finding out that Germany is the birthplace of the nutcracker probably comes as no surprise. In the Erzgebirge region in the east of Germany, the low-lying mountain range was a rich supply of metals, from gold and silver to uranium and tin, and by the 1400s, the mining industry had resulted in the area becoming rich and well-settled, with hundreds of castles, villages, and ornate churches dotting the landscape. But then the resources ran dry. Actually, there was one other resource that the ore mountains were rich in: wood. And with the new livelihood necessary, the families in these areas began to carve the wood. In the early 1700s, in Sonneberg, in Thuringia, Germany, the seat of wooden toy manufacturing known for the Nuremberg trinkets, nutbiters began to be referenced. Their operation, craftsmen explained proudly, was based on the principles of leverage, and their finely carved forms were skillfully drawn out of a block of wood until finally a little man stood before the amazed customer. The nutcrackers were said to be an excellent hedge against bad luck and offered protection from any mischief and nonsense evil spirits might be dreaming up against the household. So important was this new profession that a law was passed restricting all wood carving to craftsmen who were proficient in the art and their families. Little wooden soldiers, policemen, and woodsmen marched out of wooden blocks and into the homes of delighted owners as the use of the nutcracker became both fashionable and practical and highly collectible. The artistry of the craftsmen brought a charm to their product and enchanted children and adults wherever they were sold. At the Dresden Fair in 1745, nutcrackers, dressed in contrasting colors of gold and red or blue and orange, were being sold to the delight of the attendees. And then, in 1816, E.T.A. Hoffmann penned his popular book, The Nutcracker and the Mouse King, increasing the popularity of the wooden nutcrackers even more. By the time Heinrich Hoffmann centered his book around a royal nutcracker character in The King Nutcracker and Poor Reinhold, in 1851, the dolls with the hinged jaws were well known and loved across Europe. But the handcrafted toy with a job was limited by the tedious production of the pieces. Of course, there was a solution for that. At least, that's what a woodworker named Wilhelm Futschner thought. All he needed was a water-powered lathe in his shop in the little town of Seiffen, on which he could create the pieces of his serious nutcrackers modeled after the Hoffmann character, before carefully assembling some 60 or so parts per nutcracker with small, tightly fitted wooden pegs. The world Wilhelm occupied in 1865 was harsh, with a distinctive class division, where the elites lived well and workers struggled to make it at all. So the first commercial production of nutcrackers were serious little men designed to mock the ruling class as the wooden authority figures were put to work cracking nuts for children. It was a low-key insult for sure, but one that resonated with the populace of the time, understandably. And then on December 18th, 1892, the Nutcracker ballet, adapted from E.T.A. Hoffmann's book by Alexander Dumas for the stage and scored by the brilliant Tchaikovsky, debuted in the Imperial Mariinsky Theater in St. Petersburg, Russia. And the critics hated it. All of it. The costumes, sets, dancing, and the music were simply uninspired. However, the Musical Society couldn't disagree more. Not being the heathens that the critics were, they had already attended a concert held for the St. Petersburg branch of their organization in March, where Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker Suite, a selection of 8 of the musical numbers from the ballet, had been performed. The Nutcracker Suite was an instant hit, and no theater critics were going to stop its rise to popularity, as the suite was performed in concerts around the world and even made its way to the Disney studios, where dancing brooms and hippos accompanied a mouse sorcerer as they spun across the screen to Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker Suite in Fantasia. The entire affair tied the Nutcrackers firmly to the Christmas tradition. Families like the Flitzners and the Steinbachs, who have been producing nutcrackers for centuries in the Erdeberg area of Germany, make up only a part of an industry that easily sells hundreds of thousands of nutcrackers per year. Nutcrackers are now made to reflect characters of all sorts from around the world, and the nostalgia of these colorful little men with their biting mouths that incorporate their jaws into their stomachs to give them a firm grip on nuts of any kind continues to grow, with their images splashed on wrapping paper, clothes, bags, mugs, and dishes, etc. They tower over visitors as they stand guard beside front doors at the holidays, with their painted plastic faces and bejeweled uniforms. They spring to life in Christmas movies and twirl across stages in now beloved ballets, and are blown from glass and hung on Christmas trees alongside ballerinas and nattily dressed rats. Oh, and sometimes they even get down to the work they were originally created to do, cracking a few nuts. Today's Advent video was created for a very special mother whose birthday happens to fall on this very day. Her love for nutcrackers and her family, though not necessarily in that order, is clearly demonstrated. She is a blessing in our lives and the lives of so many others. Happy birthday, Nini. As you know, everyone in this little house adores you. Now go and buy a bag of walnuts already shelled, and let your poor nutcrackers get some rest amongst your Christmas decorations, and we'll see you next time.